taking 3 slow, deep breaths on your own. What I'm going to suggest is that we push the chairs forward and people stand behind their chairs with enough room that you can move your body a little bit. Okay, everybody has space. Okay, so perhaps just first coming to standing with your feet together. Maybe closing your eyes again, returning to stillness after just that little bit of movement. See if you can put your attention in the bottom of your feet and just notice what's happening there. Maybe closing your eyes. And because we're not talking in this moment, I'm not going to have people shout out what they feel. But perhaps you can just notice the little tiny adjustments that your feet are making to keep you balanced. And if you aren't aware of those little tiny adjustments, you can do the experiment of opening your eyes and standing on one foot. And seeing if you can notice those adjustments. And then, just so the other foot's not lonely, doing the other foot. So often we think of balance as this thing that we can get and keep. But really, balance is always a series of adjustments. So a lot of us say, I want more balance in my life. And again, it's not one of those things that you go to Costco and buy in bulk. It's usually a series of little adjustments. And sometimes we, in our lives, not just physically, but in our work life, or in our emotional life, or in our family life, we lose our balance completely. We fall over. And then we get up and we start over. But often, a little adjustment, a big adjustment, occasionally falling over, starting again. But that's balance. That's the reality of balance. So just standing, gently pulling your shoulders up by your ears, noticing if this feels particularly familiar, pulling the shoulders back, dropping the shoulders down, rolling the shoulders forward. And now that you know the motion, see if you can perhaps connect it with the breath. So on the in-breath, pulling up and back, and on the out-breath, rolling forward. Seeing if you can put your full attention with the movement. Again, giving this gift of kind attention to yourself. And then reversing, so pulling the shoulders up and forward, and down and back. Really feeling the sensations as they change as you move. Listening to and honoring your limits, so knowing when you need to stop, and then coming to stillness. And gently dropping your left ear towards your left shoulder. Feel it, and then dropping your right shoulder down, and just feeling the stretch in the neck. And again, seeing if you can bring your full attention to the sensations. Maybe moving your head a little bit forward, a little bit back, seeing how the sensations change. When you're ready, coming to center, shifting your head to the other side, trying not to lose my mic. Breathing, dropping deeper into this moment, bringing the head back up, putting the hands on your hips and bending your knees slightly, and gently pulling your right elbow back and looking over your right shoulder so that you're twisting to the right, and breathing here and just feeling the sensations. And some of you may have some fairly intense sensations in the calves and the quadriceps or in your low back. Breathing, twisting. With each out breath, seeing if you can twist a little bit more. And when it's time, coming back to center. Taking a breath here. Again, bending the knees and pulling the left shoulder back. Breathing. And the sensations on this side may be very similar or very different, but just feeling the sensations. On the out breath, seeing if you can go just a little bit further. Coming back to center. And one more time in your own time, twisting to the right. And again, bringing your full attention into this movement, which will be slightly different than the movement you just did. And returning to center. And then to the left. Noticing if your attention's here with your body or somewhere else entirely. No beating yourself up, simply returning your attention to the moment. And returning to center. And raising your arms, gently, gently reaching over to the left. Bless you. And feeling the stretch in the side, the right side. And perhaps you can feel the breath here. And if you're really paying attention, you may feel the ribs kind of separating from each other on the in-breath. And reaching a little farther to the left. And coming to center. And then leaning to the right. Breathing, feeling the sensations, noticing when you can stretch a little bit more, noticing when it's time to back off, coming to center, bending the knees, and carefully paying attention to the sensations in the hamstrings and paying attention not to hit your heads on the chairs, kind of walking your fingers down your legs, as far as is true for you in this moment. And part of this practice is about honoring our limits, being where we are, and just hanging here kind of like a rag doll, feeling what it feels like to be sort of upside down, feeling the sensations in the back of the legs and the back and the head. Breathing here, and then in your own time, gently walking your fingers back up. Coming to stillness. And then choosing a point in front of you that's not moving, so not your friend across the circle. And focusing your sight on that point, and then stepping onto your right foot and putting your left foot on your calf or your thigh. And again, this is where you can feel how active the process of balance is. And you can put your hands together, you can reach them up, you can put them out to a T, whatever feels good. Breathing. Perhaps noticing your self-talk in this moment. Are you being kind to yourself? And releasing, shaking out. Noticing if you were judging or comparing. And then when you're ready, stepping onto the left foot. And choosing where you're going to put your right foot. And how you want to do your arms. Feeling your breath. Feeling the balance, maybe wobbly, maybe stable. Having a sense of humor. Starting over if you need to. And releasing. And For some of you, you have a chair in front of you, and it may be easiest if you put your hand on the chair and then just gently reaching back with your right hand for your right foot and feeling the sensations in the front of your thigh or your quadricep. Breathing here. Seeing if you can stretch just a little bit more. And releasing, shaking out. Other side. Breathing. Feeling the sensations in the thigh. Noticing if your attention's elsewhere. Breathing. Releasing. Shaking out. Standing and coming to stillness. Feeling the breath in the body. Feeling the results of just those simple movements. And again, this is one that it may help to have your chair in front of you. So, putting now your right heel above your left knee. And if you can do it without the chair, great, but no pressure. And then just gradually squatting down and feeling the sensations mostly in the right hamstring and buttocks. And just feeling that stretch, listening to your body, honoring your limits in this moment. Coming back up, switching sides, noticing where your attention is. Squatting down, feeling the sensations. Coming back up. And then stepping back with the right foot, moving the right heel towards the floor and stopping where your calf suggests in this moment. And then bending the right foot so that there's a different set of sensations in the calf. Breathing, noticing where your attention is, and then switching legs. Putting the left leg back, pressing the heel towards the floor, feeling the sensations. And then when you're ready, bending the left calf so that the sensations change. And coming to stand. And now we can move the chairs behind us for a minute and step forward. So standing and coming to stillness and just noticing how your energy is in this moment, closing your eyes, checking in with your body, checking in with your mind, checking in with your heart and your emotions. And really knowing that however you are in this moment is absolutely fine. And now I'm going to do a practice that I do with kids, but I'm going to do it with you all in reverse. So we are now seaweed, and we're in very still waters, but the current's picking up. So you can open your eyes And as with the children, I ask that you be careful and not clonk your neighbor. But the current's going to start to get a little bigger, so just swinging. And some people can step forward, some people can step back. And the current's getting a little bigger. And notice if you're choosing to stay in a small current. See if you can let the current be really big, a little bit faster. And then the fastest current that you're going to allow yourself. And then returning to stillness. And finding your seat. And while you're finding your seat, I'll just say one thing about that particular practice. So when I have a bunch of energetic kids, and they're having difficulty sitting still, I'll often do that seaweed practice where they start in a very fast current and the instructions are to keep their feet or their seaweed roots anchored to the floor, and then the current gradually slows down. And it can really take 1 or 2 minutes, but that's an example of meeting their energy where it is and shifting it. So I talked about meeting and lowering or meeting and raising, and that's a way to either raise the energy, because we're getting, as Winnie the Pooh would say, a little afternoonish, or to lower the energy if they've got a lot of energy and they need to move and then come back to sitting. So we're going to sit again, so you can settle your body however you wish. Bring your attention to your breath. And again, just noting any thoughts or feelings that might be flitting by. And return the attention to the breath. And when your attention's anchored on the breath, expand your attention to include sound. So simply allow yourself to hear and receive as many sounds as possible. So you might start with sounds inside the room or outside the room. So noticing however many sounds you can notice in the room. Noticing sounds outside the room nearby. Bringing your full attention to listening. Then seeing if you can actually notice sounds outside the room farther away. And then perhaps sounds inside your body. So maybe the sound of your breath. Maybe the sound of your heartbeat. Maybe a gurgling in your tummy. And then returning your attention to the home base of the breath. And now bring your attention to your thoughts. Simply noticing the thoughts as they come and go. And sometimes when we turn our attention to our thoughts, they get quite shy and kind of scurry into the corners. And if that's the case, simply allow your attention to rest on the breath. Other times when we turn our attention to our thoughts, they multiply exponentially. And if you notice that you're lost in thought, again, you can return your attention to the breath. Once your attention's stable on the breath, you can begin to attend to your thoughts again. And just like with the portions of the breath, see if you can notice individual thoughts. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. But see if you can notice each thought as it arises and passes away. And when you're ready, as we did this morning, shifting your attention to your feelings, to any emotions that are present. And this morning we talked about having our feelings, being aware that an emotion is present, without our feelings having us. So see if you can feel the feeling and feel how the feeling feels in the body. Practicing being with rather than suppressing or indulging. Just allowing the feeling or feelings to come and go. Feeling their imprint on the body. Seeing if you can notice agitation or peace without preference. Just allowing your experience to be as it is. Without adding the distressing thought that it should be different. Now returning the attention to the breath. And seeing if you can let your attention rest in pure awareness. Resting in the stillness and quietness that exists between the breaths, that exists underneath the in-breath and the out-breath, that's always there, whether we're angry or happy, when we're teaching or singing, that stillness and quietness, that pure awareness is always there. So seeing if you can allow yourself to rest in the stillness and quietness that is alive inside of you. Letting yourself soften and melt into this kind and curious awareness. Allowing the mind to relax, letting down your guard, resting in this moment. And if the mind wanders, gently returning it to the breath before resting in awareness again. Gently coming back to the breath, practicing returning. It doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for, and if you dare to dream of meeting your heart's longing. It doesn't interest me how old you are. I want to know if you will risk looking like a fool for love, for your dreams, for the adventure of being alive. It doesn't interest me what planets are squaring your moon. I want to know if you have touched the center of your own sorrow, if you have been opened by life's betrayals or have become shriveled and closed from fear of further pain. I want to know if you can sit with pain, mine or your own, without moving to hide it or fade it or fix it. I want to know if you can be with joy, mine or your own, if you can dance with the wildness and let ecstasy fill you to the tips of your fingers and toes, without cautioning us to be careful, be realistic, or to remember the limitations of being human. It doesn't interest me if the story you are telling me is true. I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself. If you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul. I want to know if you can be faithful and therefore trustworthy. I want to know if you can see the beauty even when it is not pretty every day, and if you can source your life from its presence. I want to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still stand on the edge of the lake and shout to the silver of the full moon, yes. It doesn't interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up after a night of grief and despair and do what needs to be done for the children. It doesn't interest me who you are or how you came to be here. I want to know if you will stand in the center of the fire with me and not shrink back. It doesn't interest me where or what or with whom you have studied. I want to know what sustains you from the inside when all else falls away. I want to know if you can be alone with yourself and truly like the company you keep in the empty moments. I want to know if you can be alone with yourself and truly like the company you keep in the empty moments. So what we're practicing this afternoon, and you can open your eyes or keep them closed, what we're practicing this afternoon is being alone with ourselves and liking the company we keep in the empty moments. And it takes some practice. So we're going to do one more practice, and there will be a break, and the break will be in silence. So I encourage you to notice any urge to talk, any urge to check your cell phone, and make a mindful choice. And if you're feeling really drawn to talk or check your cell phone, I'd encourage you even more to see if you can sink into yourself and leave that be. So we're going to do a walking practice. So I'm going to have everybody stand up and I'll describe the practice and give you some instructions. So standing and feeling your feet on the ground, lifting up your right foot, swinging it, and placing it on the ground. And the intention is to really, really feel the sensations in your feet. And then lifting up the left foot and swinging it and placing it. And I find that I'm even more anchored in the present moment if I lift on the in-breath and swing and place on the out-breath. And notice that urge to want to get somewhere. So this is a time for the next 20 minutes for you to practice mindful walking, and there are some choices. You can walk in here. Often it's really helpful to walk back and forth in a lane, and when you come to the end of the lane, to stop, take a deep breath, reset, bring your attention fully back into your body, and then turn around and walk back in your lane. For people who want to walk outside, you can walk outside. At 20 minutes of walking, I'll ring the bell, and we'll take 15 minutes of silent break and be back as a group at 2:45. And if anybody has any questions, they can come up. If it's not clear, they can come up quietly and ask me. So walking for 20 minutes, I'll ring the bell, we'll take the break, and we'll be back in the room together at 2:45. feeling the breath. Bringing your kind and curious attention to your experience in this moment, whatever it may be. Coming home to the breath. Knowing that we have 15 minutes more of practice, and doing your best to stay present with yourself and your experience. Letting yourself drop even deeper into this moment. Feeling the breath in the belly. Breathing in, stillness. Breathing out, stillness. Letting the attention rest on the breath. Challenging yourself to stay with the breath. Meeting yourself with kindness. Really, truly meeting yourself with kindness. softening around your experience, however it is in this moment. And when you're ready, in your own time, taking 3 slow, deep breaths on your own, and expanding your attention to include the room. So, in a moment, we will begin talking. And for some of you, it's like, oh, thank goodness. And for others of you, it's like, no, I kind of like it here in the stillness and the quietness. So just notice your preference. If you want to speak, great. If you don't, great. And this is your time to share. Yeah, it is definitely unusual. And when you're sharing this with kids, they will collapse in giggles over all sorts of things, sometimes adults too. And it's noticing where the giggles come from, because giggles can come from all sorts of places, right? Like genuine joy or discomfort or feeling awkward. You know, a lot of times for the kids, it comes when we're talking about something and it's a little bit embarrassing. And you can just, this is part of it, though, is to say, notice if you're feeling like giggly or wiggly or disruptive because you're uncomfortable, because you're embarrassed. If someone's sharing something particularly intimate, there can be giggling just because of the discomfort. So, what else? Yeah, and without sharing too much, you had shared a little bit of trepidation about the practice, and that's why I tried to balance my instructions at the beginning, because definitely stuff can come up, and often if you're sitting there terrified that something's going to come up, it's like, no big deal. And if you're thinking, piece of cake, sometimes it can catch you by surprise. What else? Tom? A lot of us have these things that in the pace of our day-to-day life, we kind of tuck away somewhere and think, I'll look at that later. And this is a way of looking with it. And what I want to say about it is there's this balance of like putting your toe in the water or stretching toward it, and then knowing when it's enough and to back off, because it's not like you need to wallow in the intensity. But since our cultural habit so much is to like just kind of ignore it, blow it off, stuff it away somewhere, There is this way of meeting our experience, giving space for those moments, those little and not so little griefs and regrets and angers, that we can kind of shove aside, and then not getting subsumed by them or lost in them, but just hello, yes, I'll invite you in, but you're not staying overnight. Like this place of meeting and dancing with, and even our capacities for that change from moment to moment. Because there's this tricky place where mindfulness can become this whole other should and a whole new exciting way to beat yourself up. No, thank you. That's not what we're advocating, but there's a real sweetness to that question. Like, I didn't hear judgment or whatever, but like that question, that true question, where have I been? And like to really be curious, where have you been? And if you get to choose freshly in this moment, the past is a past, done, but if you get to choose freshly in this moment, where do you choose to be? So there's value in looking at where have I been, but I think there's way more value in looking at where do I choose to be? How do I choose to be? Who do I choose to be? Because a lot of times we don't do things by choice. We just do them by habit. So how do I choose to be? What else? So this gets back to whoever asked, why does it need to be still and quiet? The moment we add anything beyond sitting and breathing, we have the tendency to go off. So when you add movement, even simple movement, we're much more likely to drift away. And this isn't to say that you shouldn't go out and walk and let your mind wander. It's just that's not mindfulness, and that's totally fine. The other thing is, by the time we came back into the room, you've used, we've been paying attention now in a particular way for several hours, and you may, if your mind's not used to it, you may just be done. And there's also other ways to walk mindfully. So there's a way of walking mindfully and really putting your full attention in the sensations of your feet. There's a way of walking mindfully and feeling your whole body moving through space. There's a way of walking mindfully and being very aware of the sights, sounds, and smells. So I wasn't walking, but I just happened to sit down there to eat, and just sitting on that little circle right there, so many colors, so many shades of pink, so many shades of green, some yellow, some orange, but there's multiple ways to walk mindfully, and I gave you one way, but there's plenty of other ways. So you can Yeah, and then there's also a place where you can mindfully or not mindfully choose to let go of the mindfulness. I've been here, I've been engaged, I've been doing this for 6 hours, and I'm choosing in this moment to not do it in such a tight way. I'm going to pull my lens way back, or I'm just not going to do it at all. And you can choose that, intentionally choose that, or you can simply notice when it happens. Whoa, I'm so not here and paying attention and following the instructions anymore. Just, with gentleness. What else?
Particularly with
Yeah, I mean, mindful is simply being aware. So you were aware that you were laughing, you were aware that it felt real, you were aware that it felt different from the first 13 minutes. I would say, yeah, that's being mindful. And, it's completely legit to have, mindful, spontaneous joy. I mean, personally, I wish we all had more of mindful, spontaneous joy. And we've talked, and we will again talk tomorrow about mindfulness in the face of difficulties. But if you have a moment of joy and you can be mindful about that, go for it. Appreciate it. Savor it. Like the grape. I mean, why not? What else?
Similarly, really pretty much the same as Lori said, I went out trying to do the linear thing, and I took my shoes off, and then I started immediately going into all the sensations, and that was just a really great feeling. So just kind of say the same thing that you did, and just I stuck my feet up under the fountain and just like felt that for the kind of the first time as a true water feel, as opposed to up with the foot. That was a neat feeling. But then coming back in here, and I was so relieved when you said 15 minutes or whatever. It was like, oh, good, because I held it together really well this morning and enjoyed it, but it was the coming back in that was a lot harder for me.
Yeah.
I'd like to know a little more about those declarations that you made. I'm not sure I even know how to describe them, and they were so strong, and they were so pointed and so direct.
So the poem, it doesn't interest me.
Is that a poem?
Yes. And someone else asked me earlier, but I'll do something about, I'm never quite sure what I'm going to read or what I'm going to say, because in case you haven't noticed, like, this isn't completely planned out, because mindfulness is responsive. And so if I came in here with this and this and this and this, I mean, I have a general idea of where we're going and how we're going to get there, but someone will say something and we'll go a certain direction. So what I told Barbara is that once the time is done and once I'm home, I'll scan the poems and send them to her in a PDF, and you'll have them. So you don't.
So strong, so direct, and I thought, what? This is not hurtful, but it was right for me.
Right.
On target.
Well, and it's interesting, that particular poem is called The Invitation. It's by Oriah Mountain Dreamer, and you don't need to remember that either, because I am going to send it to you. But it's one of my favorite poems. It captures the essence of mindfulness, and I really feel like if you took each sentence or each phrase and lived inside it, like with some intentionality, lived inside it with mindfulness and intentionality for a week, each phrase for a week, it would change your life. One phrase at a time for a week, to live inside it, to be an inquiry, like, what does that really mean? What would that look like? It's a little bit like your question, like, where was I? Or more importantly, where do I want to be and who do I want to be? If you leave here and this moment forward, live inside that question, it will change your life, and you will have more coloring books for sure, and more sunshine for sure. So, but it's that's the kind of inquiry that mindfulness engenders, is those kinds of questions. What else?
Pulling at me all day. I think I'm pretty mindful, and I do a good job keeping myself in balance. I always feel like other people rock my world, and I can keep it in check. But you really haven't alluded to the fact that, like, and kids do it in the classroom. They throw each other's balance off, and I don't know if you have some insight of. I mean, I do the take a deep breath, walk away. But it agitates me when that happens.
So there's a couple different things, and tomorrow a lot of our discussion is going to be about responding versus reacting, which is really what you're pointing to. how do we deal with when someone rocks our world? Because, I don't know, unless you all have skills that I don't have, our worlds get rocked, and sometimes it's little and sometimes it's huge. And I think the first thing I'd say is that that's part of being a human being on the planet. And it helps to remember that that's part of being a human being on the planet. And we don't get to have a world where we don't get rocked. So the only part that we have choice about is how we respond. And responding is a practice. And, for me, I'm pretty good at responding, and there are things that I know make me less skillful at responding. Not sleeping well, not eating well, not getting enough exercise. If I've been the mom who I was talking about who said her patience is the size of a pea, if I've been trying so hard to kind of pretend I'm patient when I've already passed my point of patience, then all it takes is that one last little thing. So that place where you're smiling, but inside you're kind of grinning and bearing it, and you're trying to look on the outside like you're patient. Sometimes it's just more honest to say, I'm out of patience. For you to tell the truth to you, for you to tell the truth to your family, for you to tell the truth to your class. Because what we do is we're like, I'm so patient, instead of just catching that moment where I'm out of patience. And it doesn't mean when you say that then you're going to explode. It's this is just the truth for me in this moment. I'm out of patience. What do I need to shift internally or externally before I explode? We're laughing, and it's, I love sweet, spontaneous mindfulness advertisements or whatever we're going to call it. But the interesting thing is that when we are in fight or flight or freeze, when we are reactive, it runs our chemistry. So my other hat, besides being a mindfulness teacher, is I'm a physician. And it living in that place of stress reaction all the time runs our chemistry, and it depletes us. And then we react more, and it depletes. And so if you can just put some little wedge into that cycle, it can make a huge difference. And I appreciate that it was difficult. And one of the interesting things is that life is not always how we like it. And how do we work with life when it's not how we like it? And most of us have coping mechanisms that work pretty well most of the time till they don't. So, going away is a big coping mechanism. Doing something else is a big coping mechanism. And then things come up in our life where we can't go away. We can't do something else. This thing, this challenge is right in front of us. And if our default and what we've practiced for, in my case, 50 years, is going away, then when those big things come up, we don't have any resilience, any resources to deal with them. And it doesn't mean we don't have our preference and that it's not great to arrange our lives the way we want. The other thing, and this is a case of I wasn't planning on teaching this particular thing to you, but it's a perfect opportunity. How many math teachers do I have? Okay. So with kids 3rd grade and up, I work with an equation that is suffering equals pain times resistance. So there's some pain, there's some true pain for you in being here. It's not what you want. You'd rather be out in the sunshine or dancing or hanging with your family. So on a scale of 1 to 10, what number would you give that? 1 being no big deal and 10 being excruciating.
10.
Okay, so I'm going to challenge you a little bit, and thank you for hanging with me. 10 for me would be like my mom died. So, and if it's 10 for you to sit in this room, then I understand, and I'm deeply appreciative if that's your truth, that it's still a 10 for you to sit in the room. And so we'll say for now it's a 10. And we'll say that that's unchangeable. This experience, sitting in the room, my mom dying, getting divorced, you guys can think of whatever it might be for you. It's a 10, and you can't, it's happening, you can't change it. Then there's the resistance piece. So all the, I hate this, I don't want to be here, why did I devote my 4 days of my summer to this? There's all that internal noise. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much resistance do you have?
For this particular day, not for the whole thing at all. To me, relaxing and knowing about myself is being able to do what I want to do. Not somebody making me do yoga and stretching. That's not me.
Right,
I've
so
never been that person.
so what, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much resistance do you have for today?
Well, I mean, if 10 is somebody dying, then it would be only like a 5 or less.
Okay, so now you're saying the pain for today is 5, but then there's on top of the pain. So you've already said, this is not what I would choose. Absolutely not what I would choose. And it's a 5 on the pain scale. But then how much are you resisting? You're here, you're still in the chair, you didn't go home. So how much, while you're sitting here, and I'm doing this with her, but you all have similar events in your life, so I'm trusting that you're all with me while we're doing this. How much internal resistance, how much of the noise, I can't believe we did this, and why didn't they bring some other speaker, and I really wish I'd gone to the beach or left at lunch, or all that noise. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much resistance is there to just being with what's happening?
I was able to be quiet and be in the moment, so there wasn't a lot of resistance. I can think about nothing.
Your last little bit is the catch. So, and she was miserable. So, any of us, because we're grown-ups and we've been well trained by our educational system now to do this, can show up and sit in a chair and plaster a smile on our face and be participating. Any of us can do it. But it's what's happening inside. So I can't answer the question for her, and I don't think you can. But we know, the things that I said to her, we all know those places in ourselves of, why am I here? And why isn't this different? And why can't they just do it that way? That all that thing, that's resistance. And the question is, you don't have control of the circumstance. And let's take it out of today, just to make it more neutral and get you off the hot seat for a minute. I'm trying to think of a universal one. So maybe it's different here than in California, but for us, it's like the DMV line. Okay? So there are multiple ways to stand in the DMV line. So on a scale of 1 to 10, just take a moment and think about how much pain there is in standing in the DMV line for you. It's probably not a 10, it's not your mother dying. But it's standing in the DMV line, unless you got some raucous DMV line that I don't know about, it's kind of painful. But then there's how you stand in the line. Those people should work faster. They should have another person at the window. Even though I made an appointment, why does it take so long? Or you can stand there and breathe and offer kindness to yourself and offer kindness to the people in line. And those two experiences are completely different. and how you feel when you leave the DMV and get in your car and drive home to your house are completely different. And so the question is, can you choose, if you're in a situation where you're stuck, so like you're stuck with me, and if you're not here tomorrow, we'll all know why. But you're stuck with me. And then the question is, if you're stuck with me, how are you going to be with that? What choices can you make? How can you take care of yourself? How can you get the most out of it? How can you be with the experience so that when you get home, it's like not impacting your going home? You know, it's like about curiosity. And sometimes it's totally appropriate to like just skip something that's not for you, but sometimes we really don't have that choice. So is this making any kind of sense, or are you all lost? Okay, so go ahead.
I don't think Carmichael was the expectation of like I had kind of defined what I thought mindfulness was coming in, and I think I kind of said earlier, it's kind of like being present, you know, living in the moment versus this, and I'll probably say this wrong, more like this meditative, reflective state. So I think that's what, or you know, I didn't, it didn't strike me that we were being quiet all day. So as I'm trying to do the exercises with a great deal of sincerity, I was trying to like define things in my mind and get myself where I needed to be based on where I thought I was going. So I think I was struggling with that.
And it's interesting because you're dividing something up that doesn't feel divided to me. So when I made that facial expression, I was like trying to work out how it's divided for you. Because to me, it is both being present and being reflective, and some stillness and quietness can support that process. Because when we're in our normal mode, we're not aware enough to be present or reflective, and so we're supporting the process of being present and reflective.
I was thinking of slowing down, not still. So going from slow down to still was
A big change.
was a big change. I was like, if I can slow down, awesome. But to go still is like,
Right, and when we get still, we discover things that we wouldn't discover otherwise. You had your hand up, Amanda.
What's your name? Joanna? Renee. So initially I felt like Renee, and then for myself personally, when I walked out the door, I had to talk to somebody. They had to speak back. I had to say something to them. Now I was back on the path, and then I was in the grass. I had actually talked to myself out loud about my thoughts. And then when I got on the gravel and just listening to my feet and walk across the gravel, it made me put back in the solid mode, and I was good. Till I saw my compadre. Then I saw my friend, and I was like, okay, get back. So for me, I had to actually walk myself through baby stages of appreciating the silence and the stillness of going from fast to breaks. 0 to 60. Yeah.
Well, and part of the thing is that as a culture, we are so sped up that when we slow down, it can feel a little abrupt. And the other thing, and I only heard one snoring at some point today, so, but the other thing that can often happen when we slow down, and everybody's like, was it me? Was it me? What? Doesn't matter. One of the things, don't worry about if it was you. One of the other things that happens when we slow down sometimes is we realize we are completely exhausted. Completely exhausted. And I will tell you, this happens to kids when I do a 5-minute practice. They're like, I was almost asleep. I'm so tired. And it's because we're going at such a pace all the time. What else? What do I want to say? Like there's this phrase, mindfulness is simple, but it's not easy. But the other thing is that what we don't realize is that normally all those things are going on in the background, pulling our attention running our system, and we're not even aware of it, and we think that we're here and that we're paying attention and that we're engaged, when really, so part of slowing down is it's like, wow, there's a lot of noise in there. But that noise is always there. It's just that today you got slow enough to see it and hear it. Yeah, so if you remember, I did say, like, be gentle with yourself, take care of yourself, and then, but there's also this piece of watching the urge and, like, what am I trying to escape, and am I always trying to escape, and what am I going to do when I can't escape, when my child's really sick, when my parents really ill, when I lose my job, when my husband loses his job, when I'm getting divorced. Like, there are places in our lives, and I'm not saying these are the only places in our lives, but they are the places that are the hardest on us. And like, there's places of no escape. And so if our habit is always to escape, then when we really have our back up against the wall and there's no escape, we have no skills for being there. We have no capacity. We're so used to being comfortable and arranging our lives the way we want that even the DMV line can cost us our peace of mind, much less a bigger, more dramatic thing. I was somewhere just the other day, and someone said, what is it worth giving up your ease for? Like, how easily do we give up our ease? Because the lady in front of me is counting her change so slowly. Am I going to give up my ease for that? Or am I going to hope that I'm 92 and still going to the grocery store? I mean, it's just how do we choose to hold things? The sad thing is that we're teaching our kids the habit of giving up your ease, and we're not teaching them a way to be. This is going to be a weird phrase, and I'll leave it with you to like percolate with it overnight. There is a possibility of being comfortable with discomfort. And then you're not giving up your ease all the time, and your discomfort isn't running your biochemistry, and it isn't having you snap at your kids and honk on your horn and all those things. So it's like part of what we're developing is the ability to be comfortable with discomfort. And our culture, we will do anything else. We will eat, we will drink, we will do drugs, we will shop, we will watch TV, we will be on the internet. We will do anything other than learn how to be comfortable with discomfort, most of us. So I'm going to pause here. I'm going to let you know about tomorrow, just in case some of you are deciding whether or not you're going to come back. Tomorrow is going to be a lot about responding versus reacting. So when you said, like, when your world gets rocked, now what? So we can all be amazing, mindful, peaceful, calm when our world's not rocked. But we're going to talk about what happens when our world is rocked. That'll be the morning. And then in the afternoon, we're going to talk about how you would introduce these practices to children in your classroom or at home or both. And then at the very end, we're going to talk about kind of some cautions and next steps and what it really takes to bring these skills to kids in a way that's meaningful and lasting. And I'll leave time for question and answer.